to my youth. Victoria will explain why in a moment. But some very important early 80s music people have just gone in the studio, come in the studio and said, "Oh, Shaker Stevens is sat next to me." Sorry, hello. Yes, back to sport. Bjorn Borg, John McEnroe, Liverpool Ipswich were dominating Europe, and Bob Willis is coming in, Spurs legend Steve Perryman, and the world snooker champion of 81, Steve Davis. They're all in the sports team, tapping into your 81 sporting memories. Tell me why sport was better in 1981, or if you disagree, let me know by text 85058, email logan@bbc.co.uk. We'll also be giving 2011 a little look in as well, with Arsenal's woeful league capitulation and Manchester United's Champions League challenge this evening in Germany. And on other news, with Olympic ticket lines closing at midnight tonight, I'd like to know if you've overbought in anticipation of being disappointed. You, of course, will be committed to pay for everything you've ordered if you get everything. What happens if you can't afford the tickets? If you've ordered, for example, £3,000 worth, and they say, yeah, you've got them all. Well, we'll be looking at that, and we have an expert from which you can tell you what you can do and what your rights are.
Thank you very much. So,
have a great show. This is
We've got
brilliant.
Cheryl Baker. Hello, Cheryl Baker.
Hello.
Mike Nolan. Hello.
Hello there.
How are you?
Fine, thanks.
Jay Aston. Good morning.
Hello.
And Michael Barrett.
Call me Harry Webb if you like.
Shaking Stevens, welcome all of you to the studio. 1981 Day on 5 Live today. It's part of our build-up to the royal wedding. And we're looking back at Britain in the year that Charles and Diana got married. So what was it like back then? Population just over 56 million. Margaret Thatcher had been Prime Minister for a couple of years, introducing policies of privatisation of state-owned industries and utilities and reform of the trade unions. It was also the year for 4 Labour defectors, known as the Gang of Four, who set up the SDP. They formed an alliance with the Liberals, who went on to become the Liberal Democrats. Unemployment was at about the same level as now, at 2.5 million, with 6,000 people joining the dole queue every day. And there were inner-city riots in London, Liverpool, Leeds and Birmingham.
Rioters in Brixton, Toxteth and other areas fought with police and indulged in an orgy of looting, arson and vandalism.
The police fought to establish cordons cutting Atlantic Road off to the north from the shopping centre and to the south from Railton and Mail Roads.
There is a criminal element of black youths in this area who want to go about committing crime and don't feel that they should be the subject of the constraints of the normal policing that we've come to expect in our community.
There is no excuse for riots by anyone, whatever their colour or background. And when they do it, they do great harm to whatever is their cause. And may I make that absolutely clear. And I will do everything possible both to condemn and bring to justice those who get involved in riots and who throw petrol bombs, stones or anything at other people and put the life and limb of others in danger.
Sutcliffe's last victim was a 19-year-old student at Leeds University, Jacqueline Hill. Once he'd admitted he was the Yorkshire Ripper, Sutcliffe took over 15 hours to tell the police the rest of his story. A story of 13 killings, 7 ferocious attacks, and a gruesome game of hide-and-seek with the police that lasted for 6 long and terrifying years.
These figures announced today are worse not merely than any unemployment figures announced since the end of the war. They are worse even than any figures for a January, except one single month, even in the 1930s. That's the situation we have faced in this country. Is the Right Honourable Lady aware, and will she acknowledge, that she has been responsible for the worst unemployment figures we've had recorded in this country in this century?
I'm sorry to hear of Mr. Sands' death. To me, it could have been avoidable if the right advice had been given to them, that there was no possible way in which Parliament could sanction violence of this kind.
Many hundreds of people have been done to death by the Irish Republican Army, and they had absolutely no choice whatsoever. But Bobby Sands made a choice to die.
There was many times in the past couple of years when greater flexibility and greater sensitivity would have solved it before it reached the stage that it has now. The Provisional IRA wanted Bobby Sands either to have a victory or to die, because had he given in without a victory, it would have been a severe blow to them.
We were instructing those of our members who were now on strike to go back to work immediately while the negotiations commence. We've also said that failing a satisfactory solution to those problems as a result of our negotiations, and there'll be 3 of us negotiating on behalf of the union, then we would be coming to them for support. We think the time is right for them to go back to shoulder solidarity with those who are negotiating on their behalf.
The wage levels are similar to those which are enjoyed by Ford workers, and Ford is profitable and we're not. And that is really all I have to say at this time, except that we're always ready to meet union leaders anywhere, anytime, night or day over the weekend.
The first case of AIDS in the UK was reported in December '81. The first ever London Marathon took place and MTV was launched. The CD player was also invented in the same year. Around 50% of people living in Britain had a landline telephone. Nobody had even heard of mobiles. It was another 2 years before the first ever one was available to buy. What about the music? The new Romantics era was in full swing with bands like Adam and the Ants, Ultravox, Spandau Ballet, and Bucks Fizz won the Eurovision Song Contest.
You gotta speed it up, and then you gotta slow it down. 'Cause if you believe that a love can hit the top, you gotta play around. And soon you will find that there comes a time for making you rise up.
It was number one this very day in 1981, but on the day that Charles and Diana got married, this was number one. So, the day that Charles and Diana got married, Shakin' Stevens, you were number one. Tell us about your memories of that day.
Well, I was rehearsing for a tour, and
you must have had the telly on in the studio, must you?
No, we didn't. No. We were too busy get the songs together for the tour, basically.
Right.
But I was aware it was a royal number one.
Yeah.
Stayed at the top of the charts for number one. And I'm looking down here. You give me a green a green buff on the microphone here. I can't really say too much about it, really. But I mean, we were deep in. I was just focused on music, basically, and it's very nice to have a royal number one. You know, it's great, fantastic.
What about you three? I mean, that was just an amazing time for you as, you know, young artists back then. What was it like, Cheryl?
Oh, it was wonderful, and that was such a bloke thing to say, Shaky.
What's that?
Well, yeah, I was rehearsing. I mean, I just couldn't. I was glued to the television with Charles and Diana. I just thought it was wonderful, and I will be glued on Friday. Yeah. Although we've got a gig on Friday, but beforehand I should be glued to the telly watching Kate and Wills. It was just a glorious time. 1981. Not just because we won the Eurovision, but 1981 just was a wonderful year. We seem to have come out of some really bad times in the 70s. There was a lot of, you know, even the music reflected sort of bad feeling, and there was a lot of sort of anti kind of feelings.
Establishment.
It was coming through into the music, and it was all very in your face. Like, I hate the world and I hate England.
Well, the punk thing, we just had all the punk thing, hadn't we? So.
And then we come into the 80s, and it was all, let's all have a happy time. And Shaky's bouncing around the stage like he did and probably still does, and we came on all multicoloured and ripped our skirts off, and it was just a time for people to say, sod it, let's just have a really happy time.
Although Ghost Town was out then, which obviously was reflecting, you know, rundown in the cities and unemployment and all the rest of it.
Well, there was all that, there was the riots and all sorts, it was all going on, but I think the music and the fashion of the era lifted people out of that. It sort of took over, and that's why I think we've got the 80s fashion back today, because it was so strong and so individual.
So what I don't know if you, I mean, you didn't necessarily wear the kind of, you know, the frilly shirts and the...
Oh, we did eventually.
Yeah, eventually, okay. But where did that all come from, that exuberant, for men particularly, that quite very camp kind of fashion?
Very girly.
Well, I think it was the world coming out, wasn't it? Because it was that the whole gay thing was really at the beginning of its the whole liberation movement, I think.
There was a programme on in the 80s called the Snoop Sisters, if anyone remembers. It was two old ladies they used to investigate things, a bit like Hattie Wainwright in Investigates That. And Mike and Bobby looked like the Snoop Sisters because their hair was all poof on the
No, it was a typical photo session. They tried to change a hairstyle. They thought, well, we've had that style, let's try something else. And they just buffed our hair up. They're like bulldogs, weren't they?
It was, brilliant shirts, pirates and the girls they were.
Yeah.
You were a much more man show, Shaky, weren't you? You didn't go down the side.
I don't think I really fitted into the 80s, basically, because, I mean, they all wore kind of square shoulders and as they say, they were saying there, with the haircuts and so forth, Duran Duran's, your Boy George, your Kraftwerk and so forth. I mean, I didn't really fit into it really, but I mean, I just went with what I liked. I've always liked since I left school. I mean, I love traditional rhythm and blues and rootsy music, and that's what I like, you know. And basically, I just went with what I enjoy doing, and I got a lucky break, and off I went.
Yeah. And as a young man to achieve that sort of that level of success, what did that feel like?
It was fantastic. I mean, because I was doing it, you know, at a very, very early age. You know, I was singing school. When I left school, I was 15, and I went straight into bands and groups or whatever. And you know, we played church halls, and being from South Wales, we did valley clubs, and then we got old enough then to drive a van, you know. Then we started doing colleges and universities, you know. So we loved it, you know. It was our life. That's all we wanted to do. I believe I was sent here to sing and perform, and I had loads. I know they say I'm a milkman and so forth. Yeah, one of my jobs of many. But I mean, I just really wanted to sing and perform.
Yeah, and it was, in a way, for all of you, living the old-fashioned dream. You went through the traditional routes, although obviously winning Eurovision is slightly less traditional, but getting to that level of success.
Yeah, we'd been in bands before. I'd been in a band for 6 years prior to that, and so I did the same sort of thing. The English equivalent to the Welsh one was doing, you know, working men's clubs and stuff like that, and I think it's a good way to earn your stripes.
But you never know if you're going to reach the heights of fame, do you? You just hope, and you work hard, and you do it night after night, but you don't know if it's going to happen to you.
No, there's a huge element of luck involved, and I think we always analyse the formula of us and why we worked, apart from obviously making your mind up. And Eurovision, that you can win that and then disappear overnight. The fact that we had success, I think, is down to the fact that we had great songs, and there is a magic about our vocals. It's sort of, there's something happens, isn't it? Something clicks, and so we were very, very lucky, really.
Yeah, I get my lines right. That's what clicks with them.
So now, Shaker, you're still touring, you're still gigging, you've got new music out. Do you think there's? Do any of you think there's much of much of an 80s influence on music now? There are certain bands that you can go, yeah, that sounds very 80s, and does that please you?
Yeah, I definitely think the 80s are back, and my children are nearly 17 years old. They love the 80s, and they love new music that's got that 80s influence. I think, like going back to the beginning of the conversation, it was a time in the 80s when they were trying to bring sort of happiness and joy and smiles back to people's faces, and the same thing's happening now.
Yeah, I think it was hugely to do with the fact that we had a lot of smaller record labels that were into signing unusual off-the-wall bands and being very much more arty. And then in the 90s we got corporatised, if that's the right word, and all these huge labels just sort of became one big conglomerate, and so you've ended up with much less choice than we had then in the 80s.
I mean, for me, when I go on tour, I do some of the hits, but we do them slightly differently. We might do it with a stand-up double bass and you know, a mandolin and an acoustic guitar and a pair of brushes, you know. So we kind of move forward with some of with the hits and so forth. We do some new songs as well, and you know, as I say, from dress-wise and music-wise, didn't really fit into that period. But I'm just doing what I've always loved, rootsy music, and I'm continuing to. You know, if I never have a hit again, you know, I'm not bothered, but I do have a lot more to record, and I'm going to record a lot of stuff.
Yeah, let's hear a bit, because you're recording a new album at the moment. This is a bit of one of your more recent tracks. How could it be like that? To see you now, are they the people who were fans back then?
There are fans from back then, yes, definitely, but there's a lot more new fans, and I mean, I get people coming to the shows and saying, I didn't know he was like that. So it's they're totally surprised, and
you look the same as you did back then, and that's freaking me out a little bit.
It's funny you should say, you're talking about Shaky's talking about his album that he's bringing out. We're also bringing one out as well, but we've taken There's 12 tracks on it, and we've taken 6 of our old hits, and we've completely changed them around, like Making Your Mind Up. For instance, we're using that one on it. And when you listen to it, what kind of sound is it? What's it called?
It's very bluesy.
Yeah, really bluesy.
Speed it up.
Oh yeah, you slowed it down.
Yeah,
Slow it down.
but they're all different, and we've got 6 new tracks as well. And it's the first time we've had an album out in ages. And we're really pleased with it. And it's the old tracks on it as well. When people listen to it, oh look, same old tracks on it. When they listen to them, they're going to hear it's like a new song. It's not a new song, it's the same song, it's just done completely differently.
So there are some huge critics of music in the 80s who say it was one of the worst decades for music. What would you say to them?
No, I totally disagree. You can say the same about the 70s, you can say the same about the 90s.
I've had this argument, always people will slag off every decade because everyone thinks they're a specialist and they know better. And
everyone thinks the decade of which they were a teenager was the best one because you formative years.
I mean, in every decade, from the I'll go back as like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, and oohs. There were some great records made, but there was some trash as well. It's the same in every decade. Not everything is good.
Well, thank you all very much for coming on the programme.
It's
very nice to see you.
Thank you.
Cheryl, Mike, Jay, and Shake It. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Nice to see you. It's 10 to 12, and let's bring you some travel. Here's Nick.
Thank you, Victoria. M8 in Glasgow. We've got a bit of a delay on the eastbound carriageway between junctions 21 and 20. A car's broken down just before the Kingston Bridge, so slow there. Northbound M5, a lorry's broken down just after junction 1 for West Bright. 2 lanes blocked, and on the northbound M5, but this time as you head away from Exeter, we've got reports that a caravan has overturned between junctions 29 and 28. In Rugby, the Hillmorton Road is partly blocked by an accident between Temple Street and Caldecott Street, and heading into Swindon, there's a breakdown on the southbound A419 between the White Hart roundabout and the Common Head interchange. Finally, on the southbound A21 in East Sussex, traffic looks slow towards Flimwell. Seems to be about 2 miles of delays on the approach there. Nick Duncalf, 5 Live Travel.
I think Manchester United slowly but surely, as this season has progressed, have looked more and more like a team that's going to peak come the Champions League final.
Tonight on 5 Live.
The semi-final. First leg.
Schalke play Man United.
Just outside the penalty, shifted in, Park shoots!